Okay, the next question is from Dawn. Dawn says, how can I get my 2-year-old gelding used to the hose for a bath? He hates being wet.
He hates being wet. Okay, so I guess when it rains, he might have to hide away a bit. My question, I'd throw a question back into the air is he a rugged horse or is he an unrugged horse? And just think about that. So treating it as a, so I get a lot of horses now that come to clinics and they spend a lot of time in rugs, and people have to be careful with rugs for a few reasons. I don't want to go on a new subject, but it's just something to think about for everybody with horses that have sensitive issues. So some horses are frightened of the hose, but then if they don't like the water on it's quite interesting. So I'm just going to throw this in the air just as something to think about if you think it's relevant for your horse. But so a horse that spends a lot of time in a rug gets used to having a rug on, so the raindrops are going to be sensitive, the water's going to be sensitive on it. Just like the horses that get really bothered by flies and stuff like that. So it's, you know, sometimes some of those horses spend a lot of time with a rug on, then when we ride them, we take the rug off and all these flies are landing on their skin everywhere, and they're like, oh geez, this is really a sensory overload. But also sensory overload happens from a horse being stressed and like anxious, so then they have sensory overload as well. So, you know, but also I think sometimes because horses are so used to having that coat over them, they haven't got used to. It's just like someone from the city, like when my brother comes up to the country, like one fly lands on them and they're like, oh, the flies are terrible here, there's heaps of flies, and I'm like, this is nothing. You should really you know, experience it when the flies are bad. And so to me, it's like a few flies land on your face you don't even bother about. It's only when they're thick and crawling up your nostrils that you start to go, oh, the flies are a bit thick. But if I lived in an environment, air conditioned environment, I'd come out and go, oh geez, the flies are bad. So you got to think about that with rugging. And I think a lot of horses, they get a little too used to having a rug on, so then rug's not on them when we're doing our groundwork or when we're riding them. Excuse me. So then there's a bit of a sensory overload, and that could be a sensory overload to water and being hosed, is because, you know, in the rain, he doesn't have to put up with the rain because he's got a rug on, and it just dilutes it, I guess, I suppose, the feeling of it. So that's just one area to look into, just for everybody, something to think about as well. And the other thing is it's going to be like just graded exposure. So something I do with horses is I firstly get them to soften, and I'll be just treating the hosing lesson as if I'm getting the horse to soften and follow a feel, walk a little bit, and I'll just have the hose there and long enough hose that I can just walk the horse forward while I'm just hosing the ground a little bit, you know, either side of it or whatever like that. Not a big stream of water. And then just gently I'd just hose and I'd hose, and when your horse is soft in your hand, just moving and its thoughts are coming forward, you might just, you know, have the hose somewhere where it looks at the water and it just sort of, oh yeah, there's a bit of water there, and then get a little interested. Then slowly you might start wetting its hooves, and then slowly and walk it into the water. So you might sort of try and just hold the water instead of just sort of going back and hosing your horse while your horse is standing still and it runs backwards. Just get the horse moving a little, and then just as it's stepping forward, it walks through the water just a little bit, you know, where you're hosing, so it feels a little bit of hose on its leg, and then once it sort of gets a little used to that and softens, and you'll take the hose away a little bit and put it on and take it off. So you're only going to touch it for a few, well, not even a few seconds, just a very small moment, and then take the hose off and on and off until the horse goes, oh, that's okay, the hose is not staying on me, I don't have to run off. And then you keep doing that on and off until you can actually just keep the hose on its legs. And then you do that same principle, just working up. You just get it to walk forward, walk, and then just let it to walk into the water a little bit on its shoulder on both sides, and you know, if it wants to sniff out and on the water, that's fine. Anything like that you want to allow. But like Jacara's saddle blanket lesson, like a lot of these lessons I like a horse thinking and moving. So the other option would be is you come towards your horse with the hose. As soon as the horse gets a little winky, or nervous or has a hard thought or whatever, you stop and you step back with the hose, and you can do like graded exposure like that until the horse will let the hose touch it. But in education, I like the horse to have given a little in a lesson, so it becomes more educated, opposed to us just backing off every time we notice a horse's nervous signals, and that, you know, like approach and retreat. I would actually get the horse to soften and come forward a little when I notice a little hard thought, and then the horse realizes that following a feel or our idea helps it feel a little better, opposed to when the horse notices something, we take the pressure off, then it's almost like the horse doesn't have to do anything to make itself feel better. And I think in the wild and in learning, it's important horses know that they can do something to help themselves feel better, opposed to do nothing and the pressure goes away and then they relax and then the pressure just comes back again, and then, you know, and until you can touch them with whatever they're scared of. So I always like a horse to have something to do. So when I feel it brace or look at the water funny, I'll maybe move the water a little bit and allow the horse to follow the feel towards the water as the water's moving away from it. So it doesn't have to get any closer, but it has to think about the feel and do something. And then eventually, you know, in increments, you just on and off and on and off with the water over its body until you can put the water all over your horse's body and it'll be okay with it. But if it is a rugged horse, I will say just maybe trial it, put it out in the paddock for a while without a rug on, and just let it get used to nature, get it back with what it's supposed to feel out there, and then it won't be such a big you know, a big deal to it when it has that rug taken off for when you got to do stuff with it. So yeah, but there are a couple of angles, and I say it might not be a rugged horse, it might be no problem at all, but for anyone else it you know, something to think about. But yeah, I hope that helps you out.
Okay, the next question is from Naja. She has she knows about this green 7-year-old Andalusian mare. Her friend unfortunately got dumped when the horse started bucking when she leaned forward on the right eye to feed her a treat. I hope your friend is okay, Naja. So Naja's been messing with this horse, and she's found that she has a massive trouble with transitions from her left to right eye. So she's just basically more generally wary in her right. She will park to a mounting block beautifully. She can relax there, and then she will eventually let her bring a leg over, so I guess she can get off, but she gets spooked suddenly. She can't really pin the problem down as she reacts when something moves in a certain angle or when it comes directly at her right eye. What are your ideas?
Yeah, this is this imbalance is common through a lot of horses, but when it comes to more of a really tricky imbalance, there's some that are really, really tricky. And the worst case scenario, I've had a few pretty bad ones that as soon as they just get you on you know, or catch you on that other eye, or the eye that's not so confident, they really spook out. And then once you've sort of got them used to it, they're okay. But you know, you might have had to do something every day to, like I said, graded exposure with the last lesson, expose them to that eye. Because if you just sort of suddenly get them out of the blue when a lot of their thought is on through the other eye, it's a big surprise to them, and they become very reactive, and that eye that they don't want to see you on, or they get spooky on, tends to get worse when they're under a bit of pressure. So when they're completely sort of centered and feeling pretty good, then that's the time when you can sort of wean them into looking at you on both sides. But then you've got to get them to be able to do it when they're under a bit of pressure, as in you've got they're a bit up a little bit, they're a bit stimulated, but then they can also search and think towards you on that eye when they're a bit stimulated. And I think over the years, that's where I've learned to deal with these horses better, as you know, it's not just about being quietly getting them used to you sniffing you on that eye and things like that. It's getting them used to being under a little pressure and directing their thought through that eye, and having you there and being okay with that, and then being able to switch to the other eye with their primary focus without getting too spooky. So what I would probably tend to do, and if you're getting over and riding or doing anything like that, then basically every lesson starts with, I'm going to let you look at me with your good eye, and then I'm going to take the good eye away from me, and you're going to look a little bit with your not so good eye, and then I'm going to take you back to your good eye, and you show them that you take the horse back to the good eye, and back to the bad eye, and then slowly, as the horse is going left, right with its head. And that's where you do just a little bit of lateral flexion. This is the time on these kind of really tricky horses where I tend to let them stand and just look a little to the right, look a little to the left, look a little to the right, a little left when you're behind them. The other thing you can sort of really do is every time you're in a situation where you're behind those type of horses, you really try and cross from one side of their tail to the other. So they have to cross over, and they get used to having to do that all the time. So a lot of your groundwork and your leading work, you'll get to a stage that you can walk from the hip, or even get the hip further out ahead of you, that you're trailing along behind your horse, and then you just might put your hand out on the right side or the other side of their body, and then you'll do a leading lesson on the other side where the horse walks right past you, and then you'll be on the other side on their hip. So you've gone from the left side, and then you do the right side, and then you do the same again. So you kind of showing the horse that you're on both sides of it until you can walk behind it, for instance, with just one long rein, or one long rope behind it, like you were going to long rein it. Those sort of lessons really help those horses, but it's kind of building them up for it. You might spend a lot of time on that, on the not so good eye, just getting the horse to follow you and your feel, and just look at you and follow until it relaxes on that eye. And then you just sort of go, thank you for relaxing. You don't ask it to go any further. You just let it float in that position where it relaxed. And then you might have another go and get it to come a little further till that eye relaxes, just little things like that. But ultimately, the next stage is going to be, I'm going to stimulate a bit of anxiety. So you might pop a flag a little bit and get the horse a little worried, and then get it to follow the feel into you on its bad eye, and follow you and like hunt you and your feel a little bit as you're leading it. So it softens and comes in with you on that side while you're moving, and you do that on both sides, that you can worry it a little bit, and then your horse just follows that feel in and gets confident at finding and searching on that side, whether it be searching into the rein, searching into you, and as you're walking backwards or something like that. So that's something I would also do a fair bit of. So you're encouraging it to search through that eye. Not just kind of not desensitized, but not just go, oh, I can get down that side, I'm going to go away, I'm going to go in, I'm going to go away. I'd be encouraging the horse to think and act and things like that. And then, back to the riding, when you're doing bending left and right a little bit, then once you've walked off, the thing that I would do the most of, I wouldn't let the horse walk. I would, but what I would tend to do is, at a walk, before you go any faster, I would do a lot of left rein to right, rein to left, rein to right, rein to left, rein to right, rein to left, rein, and so forth, in increments, just little baby serpentines. And so the horse is going left eye, right eye, and they don't completely lose you all the way with that outside eye, just a little bit, and then very quickly they come back, and so they don't have to be there for too long. And then as you feel them soften and start to get, I'm cool with this, I can look at you left, right, then you put more depth or more turn and more angle in that turn. So you'll say, now bend, and the horse will lose you with the outside eye for a little longer. And then you say, but that's long enough now. Now you can find me with their other eye. And then basically until you could almost go right back around and around, almost right back around on the turn, and then come back around to the other eye. And you just keep building those turns until your horse will softly follow one rein one way and one rein the other way. And you just work on that. And then you'll let your horse straighten out and go in a straight line for a little bit, and then test the rein when the horse has gone straight for, say, 10, 20 meters. Test the bad side, test the good side. And you just keep working on that. So when I was starting a lot of horses, what I would be doing on these horses, I'd be riding them through the forest around things all the time, just having them rolling around that way, until they get so used to losing you with one eye, catching you with the other eye, having two eyes on in a straight line, all those things, that it just becomes easy peasy to them, and they become accustomed to it. So when they do have to really think about a spook out there, like a kangaroo jumping out, then they've got you, they're okay with you back there. They can focus on that, lose you a little bit emotionally for a bit while they worry about that over there, and not go, oh crikey, they're still on me and my bad eye, I can't have them on that side. yeah, anyway, good luck, because it is tricky. But if you, I've found just by working through it and addressing it that it usually straightens itself out. So yeah, good luck.
I remember, Mark, you working when you were starting horses, and quite a few of these would come up, and some of them it would be quite noticeable, quite a big issue, wasn't it? And it would take you'd really focus on sorting out that, them being comfortable on whatever eye it was. You used to just really focus on that, but for a long time till it was right. It's a big one, Naja. So good luck with that. But Mark, I have a question with what you were just saying. So this horse is spooking because it sees something on the eye that it's not comfortable with. Is that kind of like it's too much in its worry cup, so it tips it?
Yeah, too much in it. So when if the worry cup's already a little bit full, then that's when you'll really notice the cracks, the cracks, as in that's when you'll find the horse will really worry on its on that eye. If it's already got some worry in the cup, and it just puts more worry in it. If the horse doesn't have a lot of worry in the cup, then it's more likely it might be able to cope with a little bit on that side, on that eye. But yeah, it will be adding worry because it's just like the horse can't deal with it. So if anyone watches horses closely when they're working them, like a lot of horses have like a strong look eye, like, and you know, so there was a colt that I was training once, and he was really tough on one eye and didn't want to see me on one eye, and I thought I had the imbalance sort of right, but then when I'd ride up the laneway, if there was mares on this one particular nervous eye, they didn't want to look me on, he would go through that eye and he'd want to go and see the mares. But if I rode the other way up the laneway, when his left eye was on the mares, he'd be like, oh, it's just a mares, I'm a bit interested. But so it was like he had a strong focus eye, but his strong focus eye was actually the eye that he was frightened of me on. And that sort of threw me for a while until I sort of started to go, well, it's not as simple as it seems. You know, you think sometimes horse wants to look at you with their, you know, because if they're a bit nervous of people, they want to look at them with their eye that is good, that connects to the side of the brain that's good at analysing all that. And so they, you know, they go, oh, I'm going to eyeball a little bit more of that person on this side, but I don't want to see them on the other eye as much because this side tends to be better at it. And then we're encouraging them to be able to do it evenly. But sometimes it throws you when they've got an eye that they want to go through to go places, but they don't want to look at you out with that eye. So that's an interesting one, and it can throw you a little bit. But anyway, just something to throw in there.
Wow, it would be great to talk to you more on that another time, Mark. It sounds like a fascinating area. Okay, the next question is from Chloe. She has an Appaloosa pony mare that used to be fine with her cleaning her hind hooves until recently. Now she moves away every time I run her hand down a rump, and she pins her ears. So when I get a chance to pick them up, she kicks back and forth until I can't hold anymore. How can I rectify this?
Yeah, she's obviously started to realise that I have a feeling she was obedient and she picked up her feet, but maybe she wasn't quite comfortable, and slowly something's kind of, she's realised that, well, she can have an opinion and she will, and then now that, because she's got to a stage that she's kicking and you know, releasing the pressure, then she's, you know, that's the stage when they're starting to educate us. They're saying, I'm going to kick and you're going to move your hand away. Good, I've taught you to move your hand away, sort of thing. And then obviously the problem will get worse. But you have to address the feeling behind the problem, not just the you know, the obedience, because I'd say, like most obedient horses I see, they stand there, but they're going, oh, I'm still not happy here. And then if something goes wrong, then over time, progressively things get worse. So you know, I would tend to go back, and here's a subject we've just been talking about, the eyes of a horse. There's a video that of me working a horse, and it's a bad kicking thoroughbred. And unfortunately, the day was a hot day with a lot of flies, and she just come in a bit of stone bruise. Had to be very careful in the lesson, but she's a very bad kicker on one side, and I spent a lot of time just getting her to pay attention to me softly on that particular eye, because when I went down that side, I noticed that she'd sort of just look away and just look out over there and not engage me on that side. So I spent more of the lesson getting her to engage with me on that eye than I did worrying about the foot, only to get down to the back foot and find that she's going to have a soft eye on me when I start to handle the back foot, because I want to know that she's allowed me and she's given. Given means not submitted. Given means like an example of giving. I'll give you probably an example so everyone can get the right picture in their mind of a give. So there's, I want to walk to a horse trough, for instance. I'm a horse. I want to walk to a horse trough. A water trough. There's a couple of horses that are in my route, my planned route, when I'm walking there, because I'm just looking at the water trough and I just want to walk straight to the water trough. So one way is I can look at every horse that's in my way and push it out of the way and get to the water trough. The other way is I can just cast my thoughts to the water trough and quietly just walk. And then a lot of times the horses will just give you space as you walk past, knowing that you're not threatening them, but they just know you're walking to the water trough and they're just going to move a little. So that was them. One scenario was me taking a horse's space and them just taking themselves away from me. The other one was them giving me space. Okay, so when you go back to the hind feet and areas on a horse, when you hold your hand on their hip, you want to feel them give that side and just give it. And you see a lot of horses, they still pick up their feet like they're taking their foot away from pressure, or they're snapping it up a little bit because of the way they've been taught to pick up their feet. They're taking it away opposed to giving and softening and allowing somebody to handle their foot. So you really got to think about that. And I'd say she's just been sort of putting her foot up going, I've got to hold here, but she hasn't truly been giving on that side or the other side when she's been when she's had her feet picked up. So I would do a lot of what we've been doing, like even with Jacara's saddle blanket lesson, which is, I want you to walk with me and walk by me and soften, and I'm just going to stay at the front up, and you're going to be at the side a little. And then slowly your eye is going to go past me, and I want to feel softness until you can walk your horse right past you, and you can run your hand down as they're walking past all the way to the hip. And they're soft and they move softly. They don't freeze. They don't stop. Some horses, as soon as you get to a certain point when you're roving, they have to stop, and they only let you handle them properly in some areas when their feet are stopped. That's not a good sign, because if their feet are stopped, well, that means they're not going to soften their leg, because they need their feet to stay braced there and stop. So that's why you need them moving past you, so their feet are free, their mind's free. And then when they soften and loosen and walk past you on both sides like that you can touch their hip a little bit while while the pony's walking past, you just touch a hip down that side, touch a hip down that side, and she's loose and she's walking. Well, to her, it felt like she was walking past you as opposed to you walking down her side, because you were leading backwards and gently using your arm to get her to lead by as you slowed down a little bit. And she just kind of led past you until she allowed herself and softened and went past you with your encouragement from the leading. And then when they do that, generally they're pretty good at, rubbing down their side, and they can move freely. And because you've seen them move, and what you're also looking for is that the hip doesn't start crabbing away when you get to a certain position down their side. If the hip starts crabbing away and they can't walk a straight line past you, they're evading you there, which is they're telling you, I don't like you there, so I can move away. And this is why I tell people, if you can't read your horse's emotions through every signal it tells you in its eye and its expression, then just get it to move its feet. And its feet will tell you, because the feet will go, I'm going to step away, because once they stop freezing, they will move in a slightly evasive way. So as soon as you see her walking off to the side when she's walking past you, you know that she's evading you, which means if she was standing still and you were picking up her feet, the first thought of movement would be, I'm going to pull away, and because I want to evade. So that's why I do a lot of the walk past me before I even pick up the feet. So I know that the horse is not evading me when it's moving, it's just softly moving by me like I'm a tree and no bother. And once it can do that, chances are when you go back to that hind feet, back to the hind foot again, she'll be a lot softer. And then because she's moved beside you in a non-evasive way and a non-bracy way, when you go back to handling that side, she'll be a lot looser and softer, and be more willing to yield in the feet. So the next thing when you want to go back to the feet, what you would start to do is you would start to just pay attention that she's soft and thinking. If you see out of the corner of the eye when she's standing there, you look over and you see her starting to look away and just look off into the distance when you're standing down that side, then you pick up a little feel on the rope until she brings the thoughts back. And then you say, thanks, I need your attention. I need you really focusing on here. And you make sure that she's thinking about you all the way down to the hind foot. And you know, so you dress that on both sides. And then a bit of touch and go, touch, take your hand away, touch, take your hand away. And then eventually you just hold your hand around a hip or just somewhere between a hip and her hock. And just hold there and just put a little bit of feel on it, not a lot, and just wait. And if you feel her just loosen that side, just take your hand away and say, thanks for loosening. And that's when she's starting to give that leg and soften it for you before you even go down to picking up. So you just wait there and put lots of smiles in your body and your mind and just smile and just stand there waiting with your hand on the side, on you know, down a hip somewhere, and she'll loosen that side up. And then go do that on the other side, and then basically go down to the fetlock and see if she'll loosen that hind foot up. And it's a long way of getting the foot picked up. You could sort of get it done in a few minutes with a few ropes and that sort of thing, but that's not necessarily the right thing for the horse. What's right for her is knowing where she started to get uncomfortable and frightened of it all and then started to fight, and finding out where that is, and then it makes you a far better horse person and makes her a much more confident horse. Yeah, thanks for the answer. Thanks for the question.
Mark, it is wonderful to listen to you yet again. Chloe, those videos that Mark was referring to, so there's quite a long video that's on Facebook and YouTube. You can just search for it, and it is about picking up a horse's foot. That particular mare had to get sedated to get her feet trimmed, and Mark walked in and was able to work with her feet in a fairly short space of time in that lesson. There's also a training video it's on our membership site, which is specifically about how to pick up a horse's foot. It is on a young foal of ours, but it does go through Mark guiding you the steps of that sort of moving around as he was explaining. So for anyone out there, thank you so much for listening to us yet again. And if you are interested in watching some of Mark's training videos, we do release new ones every month, and the membership site is bulging with fantastic videos for you to have a look up. So jump on, it's a 7-day free trial. All right, we will see you again in a fortnight. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, everybody.